Hello, everybody, and you're all very welcome to this evening's Society of Actuaries in Ireland webinar. Tonight, the way in which we're going to work this session is that we are going to start off with an introduction from Sinead Clark, who's here beside me. She's going to tell you what life is like in the actuarial profession, how it works, the day-to-day life of an actuary, etc. And then what's going to happen is Sinead is going to pass the baton back over here to me, and I'm going to lead you through a series of activities where you need to think like an actuary. You need to think with a problem-solving idea in mind. You need to think from the perspective of managing risk, quantifying outcomes, and thinking through the impact of one thing leading to another. So we're going to give you a real sense of what it's like to think through what being an actuary and the decisions that you might have to make. And then what's going to happen then after that is we are bringing in a series of people from Ireland and abroad onto a panel discussion so that you'll be able to hear from those people as well about what life is like as an actuary on the way in, whether it's studying for exams, passing exams and then getting into your first job, the navigating the day-to-day basis on when you get started, as well as ascending up through the ranks as well. So we're going to use a technology for this evening. It's called Mentimeter. Some of you may be familiar with it in the past. So I'm going to just quickly run through how this is going to work over here. So we're just going to make sure that our tech is up and running. So you can see here that I have a code up here at the top. You can see it's menti.com and the code is 630739990. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pop this into the chat there. And I'm going to ask everybody, please, if I can ask you all there to click on that link. It should bring you then into that page and just give it a thumbs up. Then I'll know that we're all good and ready to go. So if I could just, okay, I can see there the number's gone up to 3, 4, and so on. Now, if you're looking at this from another device, what I'm also going to do here is that I will pull up the QR code as well. Okay, so just in case you're looking at this from another device, you can also hold up your phone to the QR code there, and then you can interact with it in that case. Okay, I can see now the numbers are starting to climb. That's a bit more like it. Okay, that's great. Okay, yeah, that's super. Now, we are going to use Mentimeter for a range of different things this evening. We're particularly going to use it for all of the active learning that you're going to be doing with me. So that's why I wanted to just make sure that all of that is up and ready to go before we start. Okay, now I am going to stop sharing on that note. And Sinead, the floor is now yours. If you could come off mute and tell us all about what life is like as an actuary. Thank you.
Thanks, Susan. Hi, everyone. Just bear with me. I'm just going to share my screen as I have a couple of slides. My name is Sinead Clark. I'm a qualified actuary. I might have met some of you before if you have attended this webinar in the past or taken part in our transition year work experience program. I did my Leaving Cert in 2000. And 2, so a very long time ago. At this point, I wasn't entirely sure what I wanted to do, but I very much liked maths. It was one of my favorite subjects, and I wanted to work within a business setting rather than a science setting. So I decided to put actuarial courses down in my CAO. My CAO application. I was successful in getting into the course in UCD. So I spent 4 years in UCD from 2002 to 2006. When I graduated from that course in UCD, I got a job in a company called Life Strategies at the time, which has subsequently changed its name to Milliman and joined a larger organization. And I'm still there today. So I've been there for close to 18 years now. As part of your actuarial profession, you need to do professional exams, similar to if you wanted to be an accountant or a lawyer. So it took me a couple of years to do those exams, which is typically normal. And I qualified as to the actuarial profession in 2010. So I have close to 14 years qualified experience as an actuary. I'm here today to give a brief intro into what an actuary does and what it's like to be an actuary, and maybe just consider breaking some of the maybe misconceptions that you might have about the profession. So first of all, when I was in school, I didn't really know what an actuary was or what they did. despite me deciding I wanted to be one. I probably needed a little bit more education through my college career to try and figure out what an actuary does. But I kind of thought that you'd spend a lot of time working on numbers and looking at computers and spreadsheets and things like that. There was lots of calculations involved. Maybe you're producing output and reports for your colleagues or other people around an insurance company, or for your clients if you work at a consultancy like I do, or maybe you make a lot of money. That was one thing that lots of people talked about when I was younger, about what it was like to be an actuary. The reality is, like any profession, what it's like to be an actuary varies and is very different for everyone within the profession, because there's lots of different career paths within the actuarial profession and lots of different jobs you can have. So on the left-hand side of this picture, there's lots of actuaries looking very professional in their day job, speaking at events, and the picture on the bottom left-hand is a recent qualifiers event for these actuaries who had passed their professional exams. But on the right-hand side of the picture, there's lots of actuaries doing lots of normal everyday things that everyone does. Or maybe not everyone does in some circumstances, because they're scuba diving, performing on stage, and boxing. So maybe a little out of the ordinary. But I think one of the key things that I sometimes heard when I was in school was that, oh, if you want to be an actuary, you'll spend all of your time behind a computer, you'll have to spend all of your time studying. It can be a very lonely career. And that's not how I have my career has gone in any way, shape, or form. In fact, I have met lots of friends in the profession. I've met lots of people in the profession, and like any profession, where you're performing at a high standard, and you kind of work hard and play hard, I suppose. So that's one of the misconceptions I wanted to break at the start of this event. The next thing I just wanted to talk about is kind of what an actuary actually does, because that's sometimes something people struggle with as well. So this slide was prepared by the Society of Actuaries, by the professional organisation here in Ireland, to try and explain some of the things that actuaries do on a day-to-day basis. So the first green box on the top left-hand side is a definition of, or our definition. What we've tried to do is define what an actuary does. So it says that an actuary is a business professional who designs solutions to problems that involve financial risk or future uncertainty. And they use statistical and mathematical techniques to study past events and anticipate future events. So there's some words in this definition that I think are particularly important, and for me, that are words that I place a lot of value on when I think about what I do in my career. So the first one is designing solutions. So at the core, in my job, I am a problem solver. I work in a consultancy, so I work with clients. So clients come to me with their problems. Most of those problems are problems within an insurance context, because I'm qualified as an actuary by profession, and a lot of actuaries work within the insurance industry. But ultimately, I'm trying to solve problems for my clients, enable them to do business better, and enable them to run their companies more efficiently and serve their customers more efficiently. So that, to me, is a key part of the definition of what an actuary does. The second piece that's very important in that definition is anticipating future events. So sometimes I get asked, what's the difference between an actuary and an accountant? Accountants tend to be, due to the nature of their work, they tend to be looking at the past and trying to understand what's happened in the past to balance the accounts for a company that they work with. Actuaries tend to look more into the future. We are trying to anticipate what's going to happen in the future. If you're working for an insurance company, that tends to be around how your policyholders are going to claim, and what value those future claims have today is also important. So there's a lot of probability and a lot of statistics involved when you're trying to anticipate future events. So then, in terms of day-to-day work, we've put a number of bullet points here on this slide to kind of cover off the day-to-day work of the majority of the actuarial profession, but it is quite broad and varied, and actuaries do lots of different things in their work. So this only captures some of it. So the first one is advising on how to manage funds to be able to pay insurance claims and pensions when they fall due. And this is a really important one. In my career, I have a a very important role for one insurance company where I am their head of actuarial function. And once a year, I need to sign off that they have sufficient money set aside or reserves set aside to pay their policyholders if their policyholders are to claim in the future, and based on my view of what those claims might look like. And this is really important from an insurance point of view to make sure that the company has enough money to pay its policyholders, because insurance is a very important social construct for lots of different people. If your car breaks down and you have car insurance, your insurance company will help you finance a new car or fix your car. Same with your mobile phone. Health insurance is really important for people who are very sick, and life insurance is really important to families if something out of the blue happens. So insurance is very important, and the head of actuarial function has a very important role within society to make sure that insurance companies are putting the money aside that they need. That can be sometimes hard for people to really understand what that means. So how I try and explain it is, if you go into a shop and you purchase something, say you purchase a chocolate bar, you give the shopkeeper money, you give them an asset, cash, for the chocolate bar, and they hand you the chocolate bar in return. If you buy an insurance pension or an insurance policy, or take out a pension, you pay a premium to an insurance company. They hold the premium, you give them the cash, they hold the premium, but you don't get anything in return. You'll get something in return if you claim, but only a certain proportion of people will claim, and it's not really known at the start how much that claim will be. So that's really what an actuary does. We're trying to use all of the information that's available to us from past events or what we expect to happen in the future to try and put a value on that claim. We add up all the claims of all the potential claims of all the policyholders, and that's the money that we kind of sign off that the insurance company sets aside. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. If you are a valuation actuary, or if you work in an insurance company as a head of actuarial function. Other actuaries work in pricing, so they might be calculating premiums for insurance, and a lot of actuaries who work for motor insurance companies, home insurance companies, or things like that, will calculate premiums for insurance for customers like you and me. But lots of actuaries also work in pricing premiums for insurance for wild and varied things like big infrastructure projects, big buildings. I'm sure you've heard about footballers insuring their legs or the value of their legs. So lots of different things. Not everyone in Ireland gets to do that, but anything that requires insurance more than likely has an actuary in the background who's putting a value or a price on the insurance premium. Some actuaries also work in the pension sector, advising on the amount of savings needed to make sure you have a comfortable retirement. And then lots of actuaries work within a kind of a modelling context or a coding context, where they might be developing mathematical or financial models that sit in the background. They're helping calculate some of these projections about future claims, or helping calculate the price of insurance, or what you need to do from a savings perspective. So there are lots of actuaries who really enjoy building complex mathematical models in Python or different types of coding languages, and developing those for other actuaries across organizations to use. And in addition to kind of modeling reserves or premiums, a lot of actuaries work within a risk management function as well, and try and kind of understand what risks insurance companies will face, and try and work with the insurance company to mitigate against those risks as much as possible. So there's lots of different things there. They're all very varied in terms of their specialities and their expertise. For example, I've done lots of different things there, but I've never worked as a pricing actuary. And if you ask me to price a motor insurance policy, I don't know if I'd know where to start. So there's lots of different specialities within that profession. On the right-hand side, it includes details of the skills you need to be an actuary. So maths obviously is at the centre there. That's very important, particularly starting out in your career. Having a very core base in mathematics is important, both at a Leaving Cert level, but also in your college degree. I would have studied algebra, statistics, and a lot of core mathematics modules as part of my actuarial degree. And it's one of the things that I really enjoyed about my degree was that I was studying these mathematics courses through um, the science faculty within UCD, and I was also studying some coding through that, but I was also then studying economics, some accounting and business courses through the business faculty in UCD. So you get a really good grounding of mathematical and science-based studies in university, in addition to business studies, both of which are very valuable within your career. Coding and IT then is important as well. As a junior actuary, I would have started my career building some of those models I talked about using C++. A lot of actuaries have moved to Python now. You might know that yourselves. You might dabble in that a little bit. We still use a lot of Excel. And lots of different coding languages in the background, including some software that's specific to the actuarial profession. I don't do a huge amount of coding anymore, but there's lots of senior actuaries that do, and they really enjoy it. So it just kind of depends, I suppose, how your career path goes. Problem solving is really important, as I said. Analysis and innovation is becoming more and more important, particularly as insurance companies are trying to gain a competitive advantage. Innovation, moving towards digitalization, digital first type strategies are really important for the customer facing end of an insurance company, but then the actuarial office also needs to kind of evolve and move with that as well. And from a risk management perspective, innovating and trying to understand cyber risk exposures, AI exposures, and things like that are all really kind of interesting areas within risk management. The profession is also trying to grapple with climate change at the moment and trying to understand what risks climate change pose to insurers, but also what insurers can do to help move forward with a transition to a greener low carbon economy. So that's also a big area for the insurance industry currently. And then finally, communication and presentation skills have become really important. 2002, when I was doing my leaving cert, if I wanted a career that involved report writing or speaking at events like this and other events, I would have said no, 100% not. That would have been the least thing that I wanted to do. But my career has taken me in this direction, and it's a direction that over time I've learned to enjoy more and more. I spent a huge amount of my time now writing reports and delivering complex solutions to other stakeholders around different companies in a way that they can understand, and in a way that helps them move forward and solve the problems that they're facing currently. So communication and presentation skills do become very important as you move forward within your career as an actuary. And I think that that's something that you wouldn't necessarily consider at this point, but as you get more senior in your role, may become more important. And I've really enjoyed that aspect of my career. So I am going to finish and hand you back to Susan now, but I did just want to note that this event has been sponsored by a number of insurance companies and consultancies and recruiters, including and also the Society of Actuaries. So I'd just like to thank them for sponsoring this event.
Sinead, thank you very much indeed for that, and always for taking us through exactly what an actuary is, as well as your own pathway in getting there. I always love that grid. It reminds me of the Blockbuster quiz show that used to be on. So if you would like to switch off your camera in that case, Sinead, and I'll take it from here. Now, I do want to point out at this stage, and they've already started, that we do have the Q&A is up and running, and it's live. So if you just look down at the screen where the Q&A box is, it's right here there on my screen now. So if there are questions that you would like to send in, Sinead and others are in the background there who will be answering those questions as we go along. Okay, so please do pop them in there. Okay, now straight on then over here now to our active learning session. And this is where, as I say, I'm going to ask you to be thinking like actuaries, and we have a range of different things for you to do here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen again, and also I'm going to remind you of the link that is in the chat over here. Just going to reshare that again. Okay, so if I can ask everyone. Okay, head on back over there to the link. And this is where we're going to ask everybody to participate. And this is where you're going to have to think and act. All right. Okay. So I'm going to share my screen here now. And this, of course, is where I had started off. I'm going to move my Zoom screen there a little bit to the right. All right. Now, moving on then from there, first and foremost, I'm going to ask you this question. So Sinead spoke a lot about pensions this evening. So I'm going to ask you, the first question is, how much in euro is the full weekly state pension in Ireland in 2024? Off you go. You can guess, of course. As you can see there, it is a guess the number. I've given you a clue. It's in between 200 and 300. And let's just see what the answers that you come up with are. Of course, go and research it if you like, guess if you like. Let's just see what sort of answers we get here. Okay, there is several of them anyway. Okay, I see 3 there. There's a spike around the numbers kind of in between 200 and 300, and we have 12 answers there. Just going to give that another 10 seconds. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, let me press enter and show you the answer. The answer is €277. And how do I know that? Well, because I pulled it up here and I researched this earlier. So as you can see here, the personal rate per week is €277 and 30 cents. There's also an increase for a qualified adult, and there's also, depending on if you're under 66 or over 66. So there you go. If you're 48 or over, the personal rate per week is €277 and 30 cents per week. And that is where I got that from, the Citizens Advice Bureau. Okay, now let me just see here. Okay, then the next one that I'm going to ask you is, now can I also ask you to take that number 277 there? Okay, take that number and note it down. Okay, so take that number there and note it down. 277.30. You're going to need that, not for this question, but certainly for the next one. And now, next one up is, how much in sterling is the full weekly state pension in the UK in 2024? Again, I've given you a little bit of a clue. It's in between 200 and 300. Okay. I do see as well, just while you're answering that, somebody has submitted a question. Could we just ask you to resubmit it, please? That would be great. If you just resubmit it, and then Sinead will type in the answer in the background. Okay, 12 answers there. And let's just see what you have said. Okay, so again, we have a spike here. A couple of people there have said this answer. Okay, and what is the answer this time? And by the way, before I even show you, yes, indeed, I have a source for all of these, but let's go over here and answer this. And the answer is £221. How did I know that? Is because, yet again, I went and I researched it in advance. So you can see here, how much of the state pension will I get? I got this from the Age UK website. So I scroll on down here, and how much of the state pension will you get? The full rate of the new state pension is £221.20 per week in 2024-25. But of course, that does depend on how many social welfare payments that you have made, etc. Sinead, you can, there's that question there has been submitted in there again. Thank you very much to that person who's just done that. Okay, so we now know how much, right, I'm going to pull up both of these here. We now know how much the Irish state pension is, and we know that much in euro. Okay, so here it is. We know how much that is. So, right, I'll pull it up again. Irish state pension amount, right? Okay, so yeah, anyway, it's 277 down here, because I wanted to look at the contributory pension. So that's the one that I was looking at. All right. So if I go up down here, you can see here's 277. Now, my next question is, right, so you now know that that's 277. You also know that this one is 221.20. But now my question is this. Taking both of those pieces of information into consideration, in comparison to the state pension in Ireland, is the UK amount higher or lower if you translate it into a euro based on today's exchange rate? Okay, so in comparison to the state pension in Ireland, is the UK amount higher or lower if you translate it into euro based on today's exchange rate? So do you get more in the UK or do you get more in Ireland? And let's just see what, okay, so far we have 5 answers. Okay, guys, I can see there that there are questions are now flying in here in the background and the team are responding to them. Okay, so if you want to take a look at what the questions are or you want to submit your own, please do pop them in there. All right, we've 12 answers so far. Now, what I'm going to do is of course, I could work out the answer here for you. We could use, I'm just going to stop sharing my screen here, but I want to explain the way an actuary thinks. So we could, of course, work this out. What I could do is I could get one number and then I could get the other number and then I could use the exchange rate and I could go and I could figure it out. But if I was to ask you the very same question tomorrow night, the answer might be different. And the reason for that is because, of course, the currency rate might change. So can I ask you all to send me, right? Just find my name, go down there into the list of participants, find my name, okay? And send me in the chat, find me and send me a chat message telling me how you would calculate that, okay? So how did you work that out? So far, we've had a range of answers here. Many of them say lower, but send me, go down there to the chat, but just send it to me. Susan Hayes Cullerton is my name. Rather than filling up the chat, I just would like to hear how you would calculate the answer to that question, which is the UK higher? Is Ireland higher based on today's exchange rate? Send me a chat message directly where you tell me how you calculate that. And then I'm going to show you how I would do it. Okay. Okay, so let me now walk through how I would do this. And I would only have to do this once relative to what is needed. Okay, I'm just going to stop sharing there and start again. Okay. Now, I'm just going to give that one more minute because I haven't got any answers in there yet. Okay, so here now is the way in which I am going to work this out myself with you so that then I don't have to keep checking this over and over. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open up Google Sheets. Now, it's important that I'm opening up Google Sheets and not Excel, Google Sheets, because I'm going to be pulling in some information directly from Google in here. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to type in the Irish pension amount. Okay, so the Irish pension amount over here is, if I pop back over, oh, not that one. If I pop back over here to where I had my first link, the Irish pension is 277.30. Okay, 277.30. Now, of course, because I'm going to be dealing with two different currencies, I need to keep on top of making sure that I know exactly which currency I'm dealing with. So I'm now going to format that currency. Do this with me as well if you can. Go along and do this with me. And so if I come over here and I go to number, and I'm going to scroll down here to euro. Okay, so that's how I've formatted. I've typed in the Irish pension amount, I've typed in the number, and I've changed the format now to euro sign. Okay, so go along with me as you do this. The next thing I'm going to type in is my UK pension amount. And my UK pension amount, I'm going to go back over here And I'm going to pull that up. Okay, here we go, 22120. Okay, so that's 22120. That's based over here, 22120. And again, what I'm now going to do is I'm going to change this to my format again, format, number, down here, sterling. So now I can clearly see, so I'll be able to keep up with this and I'll be able to see exactly what's going on. Now, what I would ask you is, can you put your hand up if you're following along here with me? Are you catching up here with me? So just on, yeah, okay, Seamus says, great stuff. Who else? Who else is able to keep up with me here? Let me just see here. Jessica, okay, super. Hassini is, Alexandra is, Patrick is, Grace is, Anna is. All right, okay. Oh, so far around about half of you. Okay, there's still time for you though to catch up with me, right? So get onto a Google Sheet and make sure it's a Google Sheet. Now, just in case anybody is unsure how I formatted these again, let me go through that. So over here, I typed in the number 277.30, and then I formatted it by go to format, number, and down here, I clicked on euro. Now, here is the thing though. Here's particularly now, this is the bit where you need to think like Sinead and code. So what I now would like to do is I'd like to get the live exchange rate, but I want it to be live. I want to constantly update it. I don't want to be coming back in here tomorrow night and changing my number. I want Google Sheets to do the work. So I'm going to put in here now the live exchange rate. And here's how I'm going to do it. Equals, I'll do this twice so you can keep up with me. Equals GOO, right? And there you go, I can see Google Finance. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in EU or USD right bracket, and it won't work. Okay, and that is because I have tried to put in a code, you can see it here. I put a code here into Google Finance, and I have confused Google Finance. Now I've said to Google Finance, I want you to go and get the euro, sorry, that shouldn't be USD anyway, that should be GBP. So I've confused Google, and let me unconfuse it. Okay, I'm going to change that to the currency I want, which is GBP. Now, it is confused because it doesn't know what I'm asking it to do. And that is because what I need to do is put in inverted commas both sides, okay? Because when you put something in both sides, now Google understands, okay, you actually want me to do something with the information that's in the inverted commas. So now you can see here, I've got the live exchange rate between euro and sterling. And this is going to constantly, if we pop back here in 20 minutes time, we will see that constantly updating. And the last bit I need to do now is I want to see what is the equivalent UK pension amount in euro. That's the question that I now want to get the answer to. And here's how I do it. Equals, I'm going to take this amount, I'm going to take my sterling amount and divide by the exchange rate. Enter. And now you can see I have got 257.79, but now I need to reformat it back into euro. So I'm going to change that again. I'm going to change this format, number, and back into euro. So now I can see which one is which. The thing is though, I now also want Google Sheets to tell me which one is bigger. This is what I want. And that is how, no matter how often then I would ask you that question back on Mentimeter, then it will tell me exactly the answer that I want. So I'm going to finish this off with an if-then loop, because I want Google Sheets to tell me the minute I look at this, I want Google Sheets to tell me the answer. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to say, which pension payment is bigger in euro terms? That's the problem. Now, Sinead there spoke about like clients come to her with problems. And what Sinead needs to do is figure out how to answer those problems. But also, she said, is to look into the future. Now, we're not going to get into looking into the future of exchange rates tonight. But what we certainly are going to do is look at how we can answer that problem at any stage if a client was to ask that question. Before I show you how to do an if-then loop, can I just ask again, who at this stage has caught up with where I'm at? So have you typed in, I'll give you the checklist of things. Have you typed in the number and formatted it so that it's in the correct currency? Have you done the same for the UK? Then did you get the exchange rate and pull it in from Google Finance? Now you can see exactly the code that I put in here up at the in the FX bar. You all know from algebra, FX is a function where we are using inputs in an equation to generate an output. So this is the equation that underpins the number that I have here. Just, do you know what I'm going to do then? I'm just going to lower everybody's hands so you can put them up again. Lower, okay. So I've now lowered everybody's hands. Only put them up if you've now caught up with where I am. For any of you who are wondering, how did I do this again? Let me show you. Equals GOO. And as soon as I type in equals GOO, Google Finance appears. But you have to remember the inverted commas. Otherwise, you'll confuse Google. So then I'm going to put in my inverted commas. For me, that is Shift 2. And I'm going to put in here EUR GBP. It's the Euro Sterling exchange rate. Inverted commas again. Right bracket, enter. There we go. There I have it. Next thing I did was I divided the UK pension amount. I divided that by the exchange rate. Okay. And therefore I can see what it is. And then that'll constantly update. However, I'm still not happy. I still feel that there's one more place to go. And I can see that not everybody's hand is up. Okay, let's give you a moment then. I only see 2 hands up so far, 3 hands up so far, because I'm not finished. I have one more function to go before we go back over then to Menti, and I have loads more tasks to work with me on again. Okay, 3 so far. Take your time. Okay, well done, Anna. It's great to see you. Okay, Jessica. Yeah, that's great, Grace. Well done, Seamus. Okay. Let me just give you a moment there. I'm gonna give you 30 seconds. Okay, Sam. Yeah, well done. Patrick, yeah, great stuff. It's not easy, I get that. And that's what it's supposed to be. But when it's done, okay, Ross, yeah, well done. I'm going to give you 10 more seconds on this because then I'm going to show you how to put in an if then loop. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. Well done, Peter. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, let me now show you how to put in an if then loop. Right, so what I want is I now want Google Sheets to give me the answer to the question that I asked you on Mentimeter, but I wanted to come up with it on its own. So here's what I'm going to do. Equals if. So I'm now going to say to Google Sheets, if this number, okay, if this number is bigger than this number, comma, I want you to tell me UK is more. And if it's not true, I want you to tell me Ireland, Irish pension is more. Irish pension is higher. Right bracket. There you go. And now when I scroll out, I should see, yeah, there's my answer. I'm going to show you how to do that again, right? I'm going to lower all those hands and keep up with me this time, okay? So what I'm going to do, I'm lowering all your hands there now. All right, now here we go. Here's what I'm going to do is I'm going to start again. I'm going to create an if then loop again. I'm assuming at this stage that you've all been able to factor in all of the other elements that I've done. This is the last part of this. We'll move back onto Mentimeter then. So which pension is bigger in euro terms? So is it this one? Because this is UK amount in euro terms. Or is it this one, which is the Irish pension amount? So, and I want Google Sheets to do the work for me. So equals if. This is an if function that's on Google Sheets. If. So Google Sheets wants to know, what do you want to know? Well, I want to know if this one, if the UK is bigger than the Irish one, comma, I now need to know what message will be sent onto Google Sheets. So if that is the case, I'm going to say, if this is bigger than this, I want to hear UK pension is higher. But if that's not true, in other words, if this number is bigger than that one, I then want to hear Irish pension is higher. Inverted commas, right bracket. And there you go. So now I do not have to do any more. What an actuary needs to do is set up models on sheets where they input data, but then they automate that data to appear in whatever way it needs to appear so that then it's most efficient for them. Okay. So if I now go back over here, You all, 10 of you there that said that the UK, in comparison to state pensions, the UK amount higher or lower? It is indeed lower. You are correct. Okay, all right. So I'm just going to stop there now for a moment. Okay, and I am just going to ask you all, how did you find that exercise? So go down there to the reactions and give us the reaction to how you felt that was. So was that a tough? Was it not? Was it easy? Was it not? Let's just hear there what you have to say. Okay, all right. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to move on there to our next question. Okay. So let's now see what you need to do next in order to think like an actuary. All right. What is the average life expectancy? Let's now think in terms of life insurance. Okay. So what is the average life expectancy of a person in the world, a woman in Ireland, a man in Ireland, a person in Sweden, a man in Barbados, or a woman in the US? So go in there and scroll across there for everything. That's great. That's great there. Thanks, Alexandra. Thank you there for your reaction. You sent us in a message there in the chat. Great stuff. Okay. I also see there that we've more questions there that are coming in. Okay, right. So far we've only had 2 people. That have answered this. We have 7. Okay. So you can see there's a big concentration here. And so we would call this from mathematical terms, we would say that there's a concentration here in this answer because there's a lot of people around the same place. Whereas here in Barbados, the answers are quite dispersed. So a lot of you seem to think that a person in Sweden would have a much higher life expectancy than the average person in the world. In fact, you also think a person in Sweden would outlive a woman in Ireland, and you definitely think a person in Sweden would outlive a woman in the US. Okay. All right, let's see then. So again, I am not a person who just throws up these numbers and just say, yeah, let's see what you think and throw in what I think. Again, of course, I have sources for everything. So let's pop on over here. So what I did here is I went to Worldometer, and I'm going to show you what the answers are here in each case. All right. So person in the world is actually 73.4. That is the average life expectancy of somebody in the world, the average citizen in the world. So it's actually a little bit lower than you say over here. Now, let's go to a woman in Ireland though, right? So I'm going to scroll on down here and I'm going to search for Ireland. And let's see what is going on here. A woman in Ireland, like me, is expected to actually live to 84.54 years. Now, some of you went up as high as, well, I can't quite see here. I'll be able to see it afterwards, but yeah, a little bit lower than what you think. And in the case of a man, you actually think it's higher than it is. A man, the male life expectancy is actually 81.21 years. So as you can see, there's a difference there of about 3 years of the average life expectancy in between a man and a woman in Ireland. Now, let's go on to Sweden, where you think, okay, 88.9. Let me go back up there to Sweden. All right, and when I go to Sweden, the answer actually is for a person in Sweden is 83.65. You had overshot that by 5 years. 5 years. And also, if you look at the answers there became a little bit more dispersed. Yeah, a little bit more dispersed, all right. But a man in Barbados, let's just go and take a look at that. I've actually been to Barbados. I was over there with a client for a client meeting. So I have a good idea. Okay, in Barbados, you think that a man in Barbados could live until he's 73.5 years. The reality is he can live a little bit longer than that, 75.83. That definitely was the most dispersed answer that I can see in here. And then finally, a woman in the US. Let's just take a look at that. United States. So actually, she's outliving what you think. She is living until, on average, 82.23 years in comparison to what you think, which is 80.4. Now, all of this really, really, really matters because if you are somebody that is involved in calculating life insurance or premiums for people, like I've been paying life insurance for a long, long time. So life insurance, of course, is when I'll just stop sharing there for a moment. So life insurance is when you are paying out or when you're paying into a policy so that then on your death, money goes to your next of kin or whoever it might be who is in receipt of your life insurance payment. How do you calculate the premium that I should be paying? Because what you do is that you take into consideration what age I'm likely to live until. You would take into consideration, for example, do I smoke? I don't. But if I did, that would have an impact. And all of those other things that actuaries need to think about. What trends predict, on average, in a big data set, predict outcomes. And then, as Sinead said, her job then is to make sure that there is enough money set aside to be able to pay out on those payments as and when they come due. Okay, so now let's move on again. And let's go on to our next question here. And our next question is this one. Now, I'm back to coding here. So if the code to add two numbers together on Google Sheets is equals to A2 plus B2, then what is it to multiply two numbers together? Okay. So if the code to add two numbers together on Google Sheets is equals, left bracket, A2 plus B2, so the numbers that are in box A2 and B2, then what is it to multiply the two numbers together? What do you think? Okay. 9 answers so far? Okay. Well, let's do it. Okay, so what I'm going to do now here is I'm going to show you how to add two numbers together on Google Sheets, right? So pop back over there to Google Sheets. Again, I'm just going to check in there. Just put your hands up there if you're keeping up with me there on Google Sheets again. I'm just going to see how many of you are. Okay, Seamus is, yeah. Kieran is, Hassini is, Peter is, Sam is, Ross is, Hassini, Grace, Keen is, Jessica, Anna is. Okay, yeah, so that's okay, good stuff. Right, glad to see that. Now, here's what I'm going to ask you to do, right? Sometimes when I do this with people who are learning how to use Google Sheets, and I ask them, for example, I'm going to say number. Let's say that I'm going to say pick one number and then pick a second number. Right. Sometimes what people will do is they might type in here like 5 and 15. And then when I ask them, add the two numbers together, of course, some people do it the hard way and actually add them together, like either in their head or they get a calculator. And then they might say 20. Okay, that's you might think, well, what else would you do? No, 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 no. That's not the way an actuary thinks. An actuary doesn't do the calculations. An actuary codes in how to do these calculations. So here's what I'm going to show you how to do. I'm going to show you how to generate random numbers in Google Sheets. I'm going to show you how to generate constantly changing. Right, are you ready? Equals RAND, left bracket, right bracket. Okay, and that number will constantly change now. I'm going to do it again. Equals RAND, left bracket, right bracket. And there, you can see now I have another number. So this number is going to constantly change every time I refresh. Okay, if I refresh, it's going to be different every time. Okay, if I refresh again, it's going to be different. And just think about the number of variables. Just think about the sheer number of variables that change all the time. Exchange rates, stock prices, life expectancies, prices, cost of living, exchange rates in comparison to Japan versus America, and then the Japanese American dollar exchange rate's going to change. So many things change all the time. So as actuaries, you need to be aware of that, and you can't keep going back calculating over and over again. So instead, this is what I always do when I'm showing people how to learn how to manage Google Sheets. Think like that. Set up your models so that you're constantly using dynamic data that's constantly changing, and then that will make you a much fitter coder as a result. So here's the answer to the question. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, I said, first of all, if I was to add the two numbers together, so let me do that, equals this box plus this box. In this case, equals B9 plus B10, right bracket. Now, my question to you was, if you were to multiply the two together, how would you do it? So if I'm going to ask you to multiply two numbers together, here's how we do it. Equals this number star. You're right. I did put in a red herring there in your Mentimeter. I put in X. Google Sheets doesn't understand that. And then I put it by this number, and there you go. There's my answer. Now, I did see there that the chat wasn't open. Apologies about that. So now I'm going to ask you to send me a message in the send the host and panelists a message in the chat and tell us how would you get the average of all of these three numbers. Think code now. Go and look it up. Go and look it up. Don't add these three numbers together and divide by 3. That's static because you're putting in a number underneath. Think and send a message to us, hosts and panelists. How would you calculate the average of those 3 numbers? Send it into the chat to us. Okay. Yeah, that's great, Seamus. Yeah, you have the right answer. Yeah. I'm going to show everyone else anyway. So that's now who is that? Okay, Sam, I would. Now, Sam, you're putting in a number in the denominator. Think again. Just think. Think and search. I'm just going to put down all the hands again. So how do you do it? Exactly, Seamus. Yep. Well done. Exactly, Alexandra. You have the right answer there. Yep. You're doing, that's exactly right. Yep. Let's keep going. Let's see who else can come up with this. By the way, Sam, your answer would certainly get you part of the way there. Okay, so let's hear it. Let's hear it from everybody else. Think again, Sam. Yeah. Okay. See, this is really, no, I'm not getting the same number of answers. I'm guessing that you're thinking. Think. So again, I'll just repeat the question. How do you get the average of the 3 numbers that I've highlighted? 3 numbers. But where I don't use the number 3. Okay. So what I'm saying not to do is don't add B9 and B10 and B11 and divide it by 3. If you do that, you're thinking too much like a calculator and not thinking like the coder. Going to give this another 30 seconds and then I'm going to show you the answer. Exactly, Peter. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly, Grace. Okay, now we're starting to get somewhere. Now we're getting somewhere. Yeah. Grace, yeah. Keelan, yeah. Okay, all right. Yeah, I can see now you know what to do. Here's how you do it. So if I wanted the average of a data set, okay, and in this case, my data set is a 9 to a 11. Here's what I would do, right? Equals A, B, E, average. And then I'd highlight my 3 numbers. There you go. Done. You see what, because I'll tell you why I didn't want you to divide it by 3, because that's a number. But what if I did this? What if I did this? Okay, let me copy this. And now I'm going to paste it. Paste. Okay. Oh, no, I'm going to copy this and now I'm going to paste it. Copy and then I paste. Okay. Or insert. Okay, and now I paste this. You see, okay, so now I've got 4 numbers. But now you see my code is updated. My text didn't, but my code updated because it now knows, calculate all of the numbers in between this number and that number, everything in between. So it's much more versatile. You're welcome, Sam. No problem at all. All right. Okay. I'm just going to go back there now so that we are back on track. Let me take out. I have a pretty large laptop. That is the reason why sometimes that appears. All right. Okay. So let's go back over here now. Let's keep going. All right. Now, moving on then from here. So, rank these experiences in terms of risk, right? So, this time we're thinking about insuring an experience. So, which do you think is highest from highest to lowest? So, first one. So, the first option that you choose, make sure that that's the highest one, highest risk. Let's just see what you have to say. Back over there now again to Mentimeter. Mm-hmm. Okay. One answer so far and go all the way. So, start off. All right, yeah. Okay. So, you're telling me motorbike, then you're telling me car. Then you're telling me commercial flight and then a private plane. So what I'm guessing here that you're saying is that it is more dangerous to fly in a commercial flight, like a flight from here to Chicago, than it would be to get a private jet from here to Chicago. I know which one is cheaper. That's not the question. The question is which is riskier. 9 answers. Okay, let's give this 10 seconds. Let's give this 10 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. Okay, so what you said is that it's riskiest to go on a motorbike. Next one up is car. The next one is commercial flight. And the next one is a private plane. Um, the last two are in the wrong order. It is, in fact, much safer to go on a commercial plane. And let me tell you what my source is over here. So what this is this looks at fatalities per billion passenger hours, right? A commercial plane down here, okay, where scheduled flights with more than 10 passengers, right? That's typically the type of plane that I'm on anyway. This one has 0.88 accidents per billion passenger hours. You are indeed spot on when it comes to motorbikes. That is the riskiest, okay, by far, as you can see here. Then after that, the next one is actually not a car. It's a private plane. Remember, they're much smaller. They're much, much, much smaller. More comfortable, perhaps, but they're much smaller. So actually the answer is motorcycle, private plane, car, and commercial plane in that order. But look at these fun facts, which I think are rather interesting. Just down here, look at this. We've seen that it's hard to obtain an accurate value of the fatality rate for commercial planes. Therefore, the lines below should be read keeping in mind that they only relate to US commercial flights, right? So obviously US commercial flights would be internally in the US and from US to wherever they might go. To cover a certain distance, let's say flights are 1,700 times safer than cars. So, you know, when you're thinking, okay, I'm going up into the air now and all that sort of thing, you're 1,700 times safer in the air than you are on the ground. And a taxi of 30 minutes to the airport is 13 times more dangerous than a 5 hour flight. 5 hours would take you from Boston to Dublin, not the other way around because of the wind, but it would take you from Boston to Dublin. 5 hours would take you from Dublin to at least Athens in Greece if you were going to go the other way. Okay. And if you live for 85 years and you are on a flight every single hour of it, you will have 1 in 1,500 chances of dying. But if you were on a motorbike, you could die 6 times in that 85 years. There you go. That'll tell you the difference between the risk. And then it goes on then to talk about the safety of private jets. But personally, I love to fly and I'm very grateful I get a chance to travel quite a bit in the world. So I'm good with that. Okay, let's now move on to our next one and our last one. And the reason for this is because we have people who are joining us from all over, and they are going to be answering your questions. I know that there's been a range of them that have been submitted, but I'm going to put forward a range of them as well myself. Okay. Now, which county has the lowest car insurance? So find your dot, right? Put a dot on where you think the lowest price car insurance is. Lowest price. Okay. Which county has the lowest cost of car insurance? I tell you, if I was to ask you what is the highest one, hmm, wondering what's going on there now. Oh, sorry, hold on now. I know what the issue is. Just give me a second. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing. I know because that's there as an image as opposed to what it should be, which, okay, let me sort that right out. Since you've gone to do the work, I now want to make sure. Okay, yeah. Results, each of the slide, basic results. Okay, now I have that sorted. Okay, so present that again. Okay, now go. So there we go. Okay, now it's working. Perfect. Thank you. So what do we have here? Two are saying Cork. What more have we got? Some people are saying, I'm saying Derry. Some are saying Dublin. Hmm. Yeah, all right. 9 answers so far. Well, let me tell you. I got this from Chill Insurance, Car Insurance Pricing Index. Right, 12 answers in there. Just pop this over then. Look here at this, right? Over here, Kilkenny is actually the county with the lowest car insurance. The average car is insured for a year for €541. And if I was to take a look and I show you, okay, Cork and Waterford, that seems to be where you're also looking. Cork is actually pretty low. It's ranked 7th in the country. Waterford is a lot higher. Is it? Or did I miss it? No, sorry, second. Apologies. But look at what the highest one is. Longford. Longford. I wonder why is that? The average car costs €915 there to insure. So what I'm going to do now is, as I am going to prepare to bring in our other panelists, I'm just going to ask you to do one more, and that is this one. So a new housing development has been built in a town close to you. What factors might affect the premium an insurer charges to the home buyers? So submit your answers. Now that we've gone through the ideas around car insurance, let's now think about this in terms of house insurance. I'm going to stop sharing. I'm just going to check in here with my panelists. I'm just going to make sure that they're all good to go. And I am going to bring them all to us over here. Okay. Sean as well. Okay. Okay. So far we've only had one response there. Three so far. We have 8 so far. So what I'm seeing here is if an alarm is installed, floodplain, good bad security value of house, crime rate in the area. Okay. Now, I'm just going to ask there, I'm just going to share the screen one last time, and then can I ask my panelists to please turn on your cameras? Okay. Now, if you look over here, now what you can see is that I'm going to use a piece of AI, and I'm going to group all of your responses together, right? So I'm just going to do this now. I'm going to press space to group the responses. Let's just use a piece of AI here now to see what's really going on. And again, I'm just going to repeat there just to our panelists to please switch on the camera. Okay, so of what you've said, the AI here has picked up that it's proximity to water, crime rate, security system, property value, natural disaster risk, and other things like that are uncategorized like the location. So value, security, proximity to water, crime rate, natural disaster risk. Yeah, you're definitely thinking like actuaries, all right. Okay, guys, I'm going to stop sharing that now. I am going to bring you over here where we're going to talk to our panelists. And if I could ask you both there to unmute. We're going to have a chat here to our panelists. Please do send your questions into the questions and answers pod. We'll see those as they're coming in. They're, of course, being answered as well there in the background. And we are going to get up and running. Orla, let's start off here with you. Then Sean, I go to you. Are you trying to unmute there, Orla? Okay. So if Orla hasn't unmuted by the time I've asked this question, Sean, we might start with you instead first. So first of all, you tell us a little bit about what you do and the role that you have as an actuary.
Okay, I might start then. So I did my Leaving Cert in 2015. I studied actuarial maths in DCU then for 4 years, and I started working in Milliman, which is a life consultancy company, in 2019, and I've been there since. I completed my last kind of a professional exam there in 2023, so I'm now fully qualified. So big celebrations all around.
Brilliant. Very well done. Absolutely. That is a massive achievement. And Orla, will you tell us all about you, please? And we can't hear you, Orla. Okay. Okay. And this is going to be resolved very, very quickly. Sean, while Orla is getting sorted out, will you just tell us about your day-to-day life now that you have gone through the exams and you are at that celebratory phase?
My day-to-day life is, I suppose, quite interesting. I work I work in a space where I suppose I get to solve a lot of problems. I get to uh, I get to work kind of collaboratively with a lot of colleagues. And it's really enjoyable. And I'd really recommend it to any of you out there who um kind of have an aptitude for maths and kind of enjoy maths and I suppose problem solving. It's a really viable career path. When I was in your position, I didn't have a clue, I suppose, what I wanted to do. And eventually I decided upon that I like studying maths. It was probably my favorite subject at school, and that was, I suppose, the path that I chose to go down, and I'm quite happy I did now.
Right, Sean. That's inspirational words, certainly, to get us to get us going there. When you say you didn't know what to do, then you ended up where you were, and now you have quite an interesting an interesting job. So Orla, over to you now.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can indeed. Thank you.
Perfect. I'm going to ask you to repeat your original question because I'm a little bit further from the exams process, so I'll leave the celebratory comments.
So yes, indeed. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do, and then what you do on a day-to-day basis.
Sounds good. So I am an actuary on the life and health side. So just for background to those participating, we generally think of the business as life and health, and then general insurance or property and casualty insurance that covers other kinds of risks. I work on the life and health side. I am working in reinsurance as a marketing actuary, and I'm currently based in a company that is it's a global group, so we have offices all across the world. I'm originally from Ireland, but I'm based in their entity in Bermuda at the minute. So maybe just to give a little bit of overview on what reinsurance is without going into too much detail. It is essentially a macro, so a bigger picture view. And we look at providing insurance cover as you all know it. So it's just covering different types of risks, but we provide it to insurance companies. So you purchase your car insurance policy from Aviva in Ireland, and then on the back end, we may be providing support to Aviva as our policyholders through reinsurance. So I guess in terms of my day-to-day, it's quite a lot of variety. We work with clients, so our policyholders are companies who are based all across the globe. We have clients who are based in markets, Asia, Australia, the US, Europe. So we're dealing with different stakeholders. We're dealing with less so maybe individuals, but we have regulators, we have companies, and we're liaising with different teams and collaborating with them to try and find solutions to the problems which they have, which are all risk-based problems. So it's slightly different maybe to other work in the actuarial space, because a lot of our work is kind of like troubleshooting or going through exercises like you've just done with Susan's support there. thinking through in a rational way the problem that's been presented and trying to, you know, maybe price out sometimes or quantify using various different metrics what might be reasonable price points, what might be reasonable risks to take on, and how you can think of those in a pragmatic way. So I like to think that our day-to-day role as actuaries, whilst we go through all of this complicated training in the mathematics space, can ultimately be boiled down into kind of logical trains of thought through scenarios that we're all familiar with on a day-to-day basis. And maybe some of you who are participating feel a little bit intimidated about some of the topics that you're coming across in your mathematics as a subject in school. But I think in the modern world, we all encounter statistics and probability and you know, numeracy in every sphere. We have phones that we have counts of likes, and we measure different, you know, popularity metrics by these things. So I think that in our own way, we're all kind of little statisticians now on the go, and it's easy to get swept up in maths in the classroom. But I think nowadays younger people have a lot more numeracy skills than we did, because we have access to data everywhere, and using that data for insights is essentially what we are doing here in our company day to day.
So can I put the question to you both? You picked up there, Orla, on, you know, that maybe people are finding it difficult in school, maybe related to maths, etc. What Leaving Cert subjects, Sean, we might go to you first on this, did you do? But also, what Leaving Cert subjects really helped you as you went into college and in your career thereafter? And then Orla, we go to you.
Sure. So I would have done, I suppose, maths, English, and Irish like everybody else, and I'd have also done French, physics, chemistry, DCG, which is design and communication graphics, I believe. It's a while since I looked at it. And also I did music. I suppose definitely, I suppose maths is the key one that helped me, but also physics was one that I suppose I really enjoyed, and I feel like there's a lot of similarities as well between kind of what my day job is now and that. It's essentially kind of a lot of problem solving, and maybe chemistry as well to a lesser extent. I know Sinead mentioned earlier that in college we also study a bit of accounting and economics, and those are definitely helpful, but they're definitely not a blocker if, I suppose, if you don't choose those subjects for Leaving Cert as well. They definitely they wouldn't put a roadblock in terms of you following the actuarial path, and you would cover it in college.
Orla?
So I took the path of least resistance when I was trying to decide. I want to keep all options open. So I did chemistry, I did biology, I did accounting, I did French, and committed to nothing, I guess, in doing so. But what I would say is, and I think it's fair to say, Sean, maybe that it differs quite a lot between insurance and reinsurance and other pockets of work that actuaries may get involved in, what really proves to be the most relevant subject. For me, of course, maths was very relevant. Accounting is also quite relevant. But in our company here, I'm the only person who has English as their first language. So in terms of the documentation that we write, in terms of negotiations and interpretation of regulation, all of the communication skills from English, 2 of our team members are French. I did French, so that's also quite useful. And having the opportunity to interact with people across different markets when you work in reinsurance is actually very useful. So linguistic skills and communication skills, which we pick up, I think, in Ireland, at least through English, Irish, your other language, if you choose to do one, they all play a role in our day-to-day here as well. I would say that I didn't do project maths, so I was pre-project maths. So my experience of that subject was a little bit different. But I think nowadays there's more of a focus on statistics and probability in that subject. So it's even more relevant than it would have been, I think, in my time. But I think, Sean, you made a fair point. The kind of scientific approach, I think, as it was called, or presumably still is very much how we are approaching our work day to day on our team in particular. So you kind of start out with your hypothesis and you're trying to back into something that you can substantiate with whatever evidence the clients have given to you. So I think a lot of the science subjects, maths included, the fundamentals of how you approach things, and those are relevant day to day, at least for what I do.
A big question that people have as they move, from school into college, like you both have done through the exams as you finish on, and obviously, Orla, in your case, as you're working on, is work-life balance. I mean, you're joining us from Bermuda. You're the only person who speaks English as a native or as your first language. Sean, we don't know what international or national climes you're joining us from, but where does life fit into work-life balance in both of your parts? Orla, we might start with you this time, and then Sean, we go to you.
So maybe I should have given a bit of clarification. So I qualified in 2021, I think, and I left university in 2015. So I'm nearly 10 years into the path now, and I have a 10-month-old. So outside of work, things are relatively busy, which helps a lot with the work-life balance in one sense. But I guess it's an interesting one because for me, at least, I had experience in this space pre-COVID, during COVID, and post-COVID. And a lot of the people maybe participating today will enter into a workforce that only knows the post-COVID environment. So it's different because there's a lot of flexibility in terms of how you work, what your working day looks like in terms of log on times, log off times. When you work with different time zones, as we do here, you kind of have to be flexible around that. But it works both ways. So now we have options to work from home, which, for me, gives a little bit of flexibility around maybe pickups and drop-offs or contacting family members because there's a 4-hour time difference. So I would say the flexibility of the new working world helps actuaries quite a bit. I can't speak to the experience of studying, but for me, at least when I was doing my exams a few years ago, we had support from our employers. There were a couple of days a week where you could kind of take some time off your formal work to do some studying work, which, Sean, I'm sure you'll agree is equally as difficult, if not more so, or less, depending on what the competing priorities are. But I think the nice thing about working in an insurance or reinsurance company where you work with other actuaries is that everyone is happy to share the war stories, the horror stories, the good times, the bad times. If you say you didn't pass, everyone else is happy to raise their hand who's also had that experience and talk about how they can relate. So people and colleagues are supportive, but they can also kind of see that it's a challenging time. They know you're managing competing priorities, and they're flexible around that. It was my experience, at least. And I think the other thing is that usually as an actuary, it's very important that you're working as part of a team. There's oversight, there's other opinions, there's different judgment. So you're never working in isolation. And I guess anyone participating who works as part of a team in sport, in other pursuits, knows that when that's the type of environment you work in, you're better placed to be able to have other priorities and have time off. You have other people supporting you. And if you can't step up, you can always, lean on others for input and support. So I would say that it's different maybe again when you live in Bermuda because you're trying to manage maybe popping home to Ireland every now and again. But I think in the new world where there's more flexibility, yes, people do expect you to be available maybe at different times of the day and night to before, but they also are recognizing that means you may need some flexibility during the day and different things. So that's been my experience, at least. Flexibility is the buzzword now.
Sean, what's your take on work-life balance, particularly studying and working and having a life too? Orla gave us great context there with the 10-month-old, puts that into autopilot. But what's your take, Sean?
I think it's really important to try and find it, to not lose sight of having your own social life, having your own hobbies, having your own interests, just to almost recharge and kind of de-stress as well. I've had instances in the past probably where I didn't get the balance right, and you just shorten the fuse of the candle, and you don't have that energy left to kind of perform your best or to really study well or to give your best at work. So I find for myself personally, it's important to over the weekend especially to really recharge and completely switch off and step away from everything kind of where possible. And I would definitely encourage everyone to follow suit as well, because I think it's the best strategy in the long run to keep yourself going and to, I suppose, look after yourself as well.
So it sounds like work-life balance isn't as much a luxury as one might think, but actually a necessity as one goes through that process. I've my own stories to tell on that, but I'll hold my counsel there as you two are in the hot seat. One of the things our teenagers tell us all the time they're concerned about is, will AI replace either the role of an actuary or a significant part of it, or make some of what they study irrelevant? Orla, what's your take on the role of AI today and the profession tomorrow?
I mean, I'm happy to pass off some of my tasks to AI if they'll take them off my list. So it's a hot topic in our industry at the minute. But I think the general feeling is, and actually it relates a little bit, I think, to your comments, Sean, around, having this time away from your role and time to think of things that are not strictly business related, because I think how we spend our time outside of the office informs the insights, the interests, the enthusiasm, and the energy that we can bring to the office. And as humans, we have this benefit of having judgment and context and additional insights that we can overlay, which it's much more challenging for AI to delineate between for various different situations. So we can kind of, as humans, see the color, see the human impact, see the emotional side of things, think differently about the numeracy side and see the qualitative or the feelings behind maybe a policyholder, a product, a risk. Which I think it's going to take a lot more time for the AI to catch up on. We can be a lot more dynamic in how we think of things, and it takes a little bit more time, or a lot more time, or the decreasing amount of time to let AI kind of catch up on how quick the human can work on those aspects of the business. So I think we feel generally relatively comfortable in that regard. And the other side of things is that we work in a highly regulated industry. For people to feel comfortable giving insurance companies their money, we have to be able to stand over our business as, a business that's trusted and reliable and there for the consumers. And as actuaries, a big part of our role is demonstrating that we are aware and knowledgeable about the risks that we take on. So I don't think we can outsource totally the thought process around how we do our jobs. We have to be able to validate, review, have oversight, give comfort to people who are giving us their hard-earned cash, that we understand the methods that we're using to collect it, analyze it, process it, and make sure we're there for them when they need to pay claim. So I think we'll always have a role in the process. It's just maybe the part in the process that we participate in could shift a bit over time.
So, Sean, Orla's happy for AI to take away some of the parts of her job, but she says that there always is a need for oversight. So can I ask you, what type of decisions do you need to make on a regular basis as an actuary, either independently or on behalf of a client or with the manager, etc.? And what makes these challenges interesting?
I suppose one decision you have to make is an assumption reasonable? So I'd primarily work in life insurance, and we have to make a wide variety of assumptions in order to appropriately reserve and hold enough money aside to kind of pay out claims. Like some of those assumptions you might have to make would be, I suppose, in relation to mortality and in terms of how many people, how many policyholders might die, or lapses, how many policyholders might let their policies lapse and not continue and pay their premiums. So a lot of analysis goes into analyzing the past experience in relation to some of those assumptions, and what was the experience last year? Was it more or less than the year before? And kind of going back as far as you can find data. I suppose in some instances, for example, it might be a new company and it might be your first year of writing this type of business, and then you might not have the luxury of having this recent data to look back on, and you have to kind of it makes it even harder to come up with, I suppose, an appropriate assumption that you can stand over and say, yeah, I think this year X% of people are going to lapse their policies. So it's really a case of, again, it all comes back, I suppose, in my head to, I suppose, problem solving and analyzing all the relevant and appropriate data you can possibly get your hands on to get as comfortable as possible that whatever assumption you've chosen is going to be the most accurate predictor of future experience. And there's a lot of source checking and analyzing and even getting a peer review, in terms of asking maybe one of your colleagues to check your work to see if there's anything that you've missed in terms of that. And I think that's really a really important point as well. Just to it's important work, and it's important to ensure that, I suppose, no mistakes are made, or there's no oversight in that. So it's a really onerous, I suppose, checking process that comes down to, I suppose, one figure or one assumption. And I suppose that's an example of one tiny piece of work that we might do on a daily basis.
And Sean, that sense of, I always think this every time I hear Sinead speak, is that sense of responsibility. You know, she talks about having enough money left over to pay out on life insurance, for example, or you talk about taking these assumptions and then applying them in a situation whereby you might need a peer review, like you say, and that's only still a tiny part of your work. My last question to you tonight is, how do you take on the responsibility of the impact of your work? Does it bother you, or are there systems in place to take care of that? And then I'll ask Orla one more question to bring us home.
I wouldn't say it bothers me. I'd say I'm aware of it, and it motivates me, I suppose, to know that I'm going into work every day and I'm fulfilling a purpose in society, and it's worthwhile in the sense that you're helping to ensure that people in need of, when something bad happens and they have to claim insurance, that company is going to have enough money set aside in order to pay that claim. So I take a lot of fulfillment from that. And I'd say, yes, you're aware of the responsibility towards it, but all you can do in that situation, I suppose, is work to the best of your ability to ensure that the quality of your work is to a really high standard. And that if there are areas that were of uncertainty, that in terms of stuff that you're not 100% sure on, to maybe flag that to a colleague, or to flag that to a senior manager in that instance, to get their opinion, just to almost check your work, or just to give you that confidence that the approach you followed is correct, and just to be aware of that, I suppose.
So the responsibility equals fulfillment, which is interesting, and you're aware of it and know what to do around it. Orla, I'm going to put the final question to you, and then I'm going to put one more question to everybody who's tuning in here this evening. And that is, how do you know if the actuarial lifestyle, if you want to call it that, the day-to-day work of the actuary, the profession is for you? So I'm guessing if you like maths, right? Let's take that one. But apart from that, how else would you know if it's for you?
So I can speak to my own experience in that regard and say I didn't initially. I kind of wanted to keep as many options open as possible, but I suppose the profession has a good reputation for having reliable, transferable skill sets that are, you know, reasonably well developed from an early stage because of the types of subjects you cover through university and then the rigorous qualification process afterwards. So I have many peers who don't work in any of the typically actuarial industries. They work in many different sectors, in many different companies, in different styles of work. But fundamentally, the skills and the training that we have has equipped them well to handle lots of different types of problems. So for me, I really wanted to travel and I wanted to work in different countries and experience different, cultures. And the qualification is recognized in lots and lots of different countries all across the world. In some, it's just getting going, it's getting underway, and they may only have a small number of actuaries. In others, it's a well-established profession. And I felt that it was a recognized qualification that opened lots of doors in lots of different industries, and that was both challenging and rewarding for various different reasons, many of which Sean has covered in his response. So I think for me, at least, it's not so much about necessarily just being an actuary, but it's being an actuary and getting to travel, work as part of a team, work in a rewarding sector that exists kind of worldwide. It's still a commercial setting, so you have the kind of challenge of that aspect, but you're working with people who are coming from lots of different backgrounds, and you have the opportunity to gain exposure to people who think differently, who work differently, who maybe teach us things in a day-to-day context that we would have otherwise not necessarily learned. And the variety of it really is what I think could appeal to lots of people. So I think thinking of the profession in a different way, it may strike a chord with folks a little bit differently. So the variety of it, ironically, is what takes me to work every day.
Brilliant. Well, thank you both so much indeed for joining me this evening and for answering all of the questions that have been sent in, as well as answering all of the ones that I've put to you as well. Really appreciate that, and thanks so much again.
Thanks,
So everybody, we have one last thing to do, and that is that I'm going to ask you all to pop back over there, pop back over to your Mentimeter again. We have a quick form for you to now tell us about what your experience was like. We have toyed around with the format of this webinar in different ways. We've made it 60 minutes long, we've made it 90 minutes long, we've given different time to the speakers, we've shortened this, we've lengthened that. So we're always taking your feedback on board. Please do go ahead and do that. And also this webinar, I have been recording it throughout, so we will be sharing this with you afterwards. For anybody who wants more information about the Transition Your Work Experience program, of course, I put the link there into the chat. And also, if you want to know anything else about the profession, please do check in with the Society of Actuaries in Ireland website at any stage. We do really appreciate all of you who've joined us either live or those who have been watching this recording. My name is Susan Hayes-Culleton, and I am super happy to be able to lead this webinar for the Society of Actuaries in Ireland. Thank you very much for your interaction throughout, and every best wish for a lovely evening. Thank you and goodbye.